Hello again, everybody. This is Dan Clouser, and welcome back to the Journey My Mother's Son podcast. This is a milestone episode today, so I wanted to have a milestone guest on with me. So I've got my former producer and one of my mentors over the past couple of years, Toni Reece. Toni, thanks for joining me today.
Dan, this is such an honor. I am thrilled to be here and just so happy for you.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be on. Like I said, when I saw that I was approaching podcast number 100, I couldn't think of anyone else to have on the podcast other than you. So, you and I kind of started this podcast journey back in, I think it was 2012 or 2013. Which is absolutely crazy. I mean, we were podcasting before podcasting was cool. It seems like everybody you turn around and meet is doing a podcast now, but we were doing it long before. And so I want to talk a little bit about the People Chronicles to start. Why you thought it was important to kind of give people who didn't necessarily have a platform to tell stories, and why you think storytelling is so important first.
Well, thanks. So I had been running a business called the People Academy for, I don't know, that's a long time ago, Dan. Now you're testing my memory, but for many years, probably close to 28 years at that time. And I had started another company in the UK doing the kind of work that we were doing, which was a lot of training and people engagement work and so forth. Came back to Reading, and we met a gentleman who was new to town. His name was Craig Poole, and he was the GM of a Crown Plaza in Reading. And I said, the lesson during our conversation, I said, the lesson with work that I've always had is engagement of others. That is just something, whether there was somebody on a manufacturing floor or there was a corporate CEO, people were not heard. And they needed to be heard. So that's the work that I did, was to engage people so that I could facilitate and funnel their angst and their performance to where it needed to be, so they felt, good about themselves. So I knew nonprofits had a hard time telling their story. And so I was relaying this information to Craig, and I said, there's tools out there that, there's this thing called podcasting. You want to talk about, Dan, you and I were doing this podcast before we even knew what a podcast was, really. Talk about just going for it. So we, at that time, I had a gentleman with me, Jeff Wojtowicz, who was in between jobs, and he, in order to fill some of his time, he said, well, let's see if we can do this. And Craig Poole says, do it out of a hotel room at the Crown Plaza in room 204. So here we are, 2008, I think, 9, I don't know. And we were doing podcasting with nonprofits. We bought this crazy equipment, learned how to do it. My son, who's in the music business, gave us this program to record on, which we had no business using, because top DJs in the world use this program, and all we wanted to do was record. And so we had to learn that, which was crazy. And then we're sitting in this hotel room, and we put the word out. It's like, hey, let's get some nonprofits in here and help them figure out how to tell their story. And I'll tell you what, it began, we called it the People Chronicles. And we started just doing simple podcasting, and then we went into video casting with hosts, and we did I closed during COVID, and but in that time frame, I helped people tell over 5,000 stories. And just the fear that the lack of courage that people had walking in that room to what story should they tell? I'm not important enough. I know what we do, but how do I share that? To after they got a couple of them under their belt and we kind of guided them along the way, the bravery and the stories and the mind-blowing work, including yourself in that, was unbelievable. And I could not have asked for a better way to close out that part of my career by sharing all those stories. It was humbling work, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I know, you know, when so I came in there and first did a podcast as a guest on Jackie
Mm-hmm.
Hoffman's show. Um,
Okay.
and then that's kind of what led to this conversation. I knew Jeff already. So then that kind of led to this conversation between, you and I of, well, maybe you should do a podcast for, at that time, Berkshire Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I was one of those who was kind of, a little reluctant
Mm-hmm.
and, again, didn't exactly what you said, knew what we did, but didn't really know how to say it and how to gather these guests and tell these stories. And, lo and behold, on the, what was my old Stepping Up to the Plate podcast that we did with Berkshire Baseball and then Big Vision Foundation, I forget the exact number, but I want to say 279 episodes is what we wrapped up on.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
again, it instilled kind of this passion in me to continue, to go out and tell stories. Because I mean, you were one of the first people that I'd told about what Sandy and I were thinking of doing, selling the house and all of our stuff and hopping in an RV and cruising around the country.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, one of the things that you and I had that conversation is about, is I said I want to continue to podcast. I want to tell people stories, whether they're famous people or people we just met, or any walk of life. I think everybody has a story to tell. And um,
Mm-hmm.
you were just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously when we had that conversation with a lot of people, we got a whole, spectrum of different mixed reactions of people that we told, from, man, that's awesome, to, are you sure you want to do this? Or,
Yeah.
is this a midlife crisis? Like, what are you thinking about? Um, and you were just like, man, I'm so happy for you. And again, you also, had conversations with Sandy, because she was, reluctant, to say the least, when we first, broached this topic.
A little.
Yeah. And now you just talked to her before we started recording, and, you see how, she is in with both feet and
Mm-hmm.
loving every minute of it. And we have no regrets. So, I guess from the producer's seat, you got to see all of these different people come in here, um, to your studio, your little hotel room, um, and tell these incredible stories. And you mentioned how it was humbling. Um, but I mean, knowing that you were kind of the catalyst to that, um, and to tell over 5,000 stories, and the ripple effect of that. Um, Now that you've kind of closed that chapter of your life and you're not doing the producing of the podcast anymore, you ever sit down and just kind of take in, like, man, like, I'm the one who threw that rock in the pond, and
Mm-hmm.
all these ripple effects are going out? Does you do that? Has it sunk in? I mean, what, you know,
No, I'm not built that way, because for me, if I ever think about it, I think about how absolutely grateful I am that I got to meet so many wonderful people and watch them be able to learn how to craft their stories, and then interview other people about the work that they were doing. I was fortunate to be, in the presence of people that were, doing amazing things. So how fortunate am I to have been with so many amazing people? And I don't say that lightly. It was really something. It was really something. And from the different projects and the different storylines that we did a series on talking to veterans. We did a series on elderly. We did a series on, Brad Wiseman came in and did How You Show Up with people in Berks County. You blossomed into, watching your journey and just playing the smallest part in that, as far as getting your voice to be heard and having you be brave enough to have that voice, was awesome, because you were doing very humbling work and you're a very humble man. So for you to put yourself out there, because you were like, oh, I'm going to get another host to do this. I'm like, no, we're not. And you need to do it. You needed to be brave, and you were. And so when you made this choice to, you know, travel around and, live in an RV, was I surprised? Heck no. Because I watched your bravery in action, and I knew that whatever you did, you would do with dignity and integrity and your values intact, as well as Sandy, and you give back. So I think what an amazing story. So no, I don't think I started anything. I was just a facilitator. That's all.
Well, sometimes that's pretty important to have somebody who is willing to do that, willing to facilitate and start that, and strike the match, so to speak. So
Mhm.
I definitely will give you more credit than you're giving yourself.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's something that for me personally, I absolutely love telling the different stories. Um, and I think with this podcast, I've been able to have some of my former players from my old organization on, and I've had, Olympic gold medalists, and I've had, you know, Grammy winning musicians, and, um, you know, everyday people. And that's really, um, for anybody that's new to listening to my podcast, I encourage you to go back and listen to episode 1, in which Toni was actually the host, and kind of handed it off to Sandy and I. But that was the goal of this podcast, is that, we wanted to interview many little people in many little places who are doing many little things to make the world a better place. And
Mhm.
we have certainly accomplished that. And the stories, um, are so broad, from, again, sports figures to musicians to everyday people to, I've had former NASA engineers on here. I've had just such a wide array of guests. But man, every one of them just has an absolutely incredible story. I mean, I just did a podcast a couple weeks ago, with 2 other full-time RVers that we met through our, year to volunteer organization that we're involved with. And, you know, Mike and Terry McElraith. And before we started recording, they were like, we don't even know, what do you want to do a podcast with us for? Like, we don't have anything to talk about. We don't have a story. And we ended up doing over an hour-long podcast because they had a story, and it's
That's
just,
the way it works.
sometimes you gotta kind of pry that can open to get that out there. And, to see stuff like that is pretty cool, for sure. So, um, one of the things that I look forward to on a weekly basis is going on Facebook and seeing Toni Reese's Sunday Night Reflections. Um, I don't know how long you've been doing that, um, but I know it's something that I always look forward to, and I always find it inspirational. What what was it that made you want to do the Sunday Night Reflections, and what makes you want to keep, throwing it out there? Because a lot of times you talk about vulnerability. Um, you expose yourself a lot in those Sunday night reflections.
Mhm. Well, I started when I was working in the UK, and it was my way to document in a very small way, experience, because, there's a lot of people that, I'm a small town girl, and, I'm starting a business in the UK. Who does that? Right. And so I would this Sunday Night Reflections has been going on for maybe 15 years. And it also, I light candles every Sunday night. I like candles a lot, but I make sure that every candle that I have, and I've been given a lot of gifts of candles over the years, And I light every tea light in every candle every Sunday. And it is going to sound very wacky how many candles I light on a Sunday night. I light over 50. There are over 50 candles. Yes. So my sons, Jesse and Madison, who are now in their 30s, it was a job every Sunday night. There were no sports. There was nothing going on. So that was our table time. So when they were kids, whether they recognized it or not, I would light candles around the house to kind of calm the house down. And we would sit around the table, and that was very, very precious time. So I just calmed everything down. It was resetting for the week. It was reconnecting. And so that's kind of the same approach that Sunday Night Reflections started when I was in the UK. And I keep doing it because, I mean, I don't know that they're that interesting, but I have people that I have met along the way that reach out to me on, and say, I need to keep hearing what you're writing. I need you to keep doing this. And I don't understand that, but I honor that. And so I write them. I usually write ahead of time, but I post between 5:30 and 6 o'clock every Sunday night. And I will tell you, if it is 6:15 Eastern time and that Sunday night reflection hasn't gotten up, I get texts, I get Facebook messages and going, is she well? Is she okay? Where'd she go? And so it's just a way for me to give back. Now, over the last couple of years, I've opened the can up a little bit on the vulnerability, because I've been challenged by people who said, hey, the storyteller has really helped us tell our stories and, convinced us to be brave enough to do so. We want you to tell yours. And that was a challenge years ago that somebody was quite assertive about it. And I thought about that and I'm like, well, I guess they're right. So I started just putting little drops of that vulnerability out there. And if it helps somebody that's going through something similar, or their experience, or, you might think that somebody's life is pretty darn good, which mine is, I'm very, very grateful for my life. But we all have problems. And so to share that every once in a while, if that helps, that's why I do it. But thank you for saying that. And thank you for following that.
Yeah, no, I look forward to it. Now, throughout that writing process, when you do that each week, is it also to sit there and type it and put it down on paper? What does it do for you personally? Because I can, tell you from a writer's perspective, when you are writing and you're digging into those emotions, for me, it's very healing to write. Is it the same way for you?
I can understand that, but I'm not a writer. So it's really organic. It is what is top of the mind that week. And that's how it's written. So sometimes when it's very free flowing, or there's a quote that I've heard that I can wrap a story around, or however it happens, it's very organic. And so when I'm finished typing, I always say to Jim, my husband Jim, so I read it to him first, and we never change it. We've never edited it. I never go back and say, oh, that wasn't good. It's just, okay, close it. That's the one I'm going to post. And it's just top of the head, what's on my mind as a reflection, and I put it out there. So sometimes it's a little like, oh my God, what did I just do? To other times it's like, this is so boring. I don't know. That's how it is every week. So, but I can understand when you're telling a story, that's different. If I'm sharing a story with someone, or I'm talking about something very personal, yeah, that's different. But the Sunday Night Reflections is very organic, and I don't change a word.
Gotcha. I love that, though. I absolutely love it. And I think now that I understand that it is, first draft, it's probably even more special to me now, because I know my writing process is just, back and forth and back and forth, till you throw it out there. So the past the past couple of years, some of your Sunday night reflections have, again, exposed some vulnerability to you as you've gone through a journey of some medical issues that I guess have given you as many questions as they have answers for you. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So, 2 years ago now, or a year ago, is when I got the diagnosis. But I was struggling with muscle weakness, and for years, and no one could put a diagnosis to it. And so, I also have severe arthritis in my back and in my neck. So we always thought it was coming from that. And I'm very active, and but it was getting worse, and we just couldn't figure out what it was. So I had been to a couple of specialists and had 2 biopsies done, and they have diagnosed of it. It's called lipid storage disease with myopathy, is what the disease is called. It's a very rare genetic disease, no cure, no treatment. And the way it has been described to me by my neurologist is that, we know where the mobility issue is going to be. Your quality of life is going to change. We don't know when, but it is in progressive progression. It's in a progressive stage right now. And you will end up in a wheelchair. So your quality of life is going to change because it's muscle weakness. What we don't know, and we're still in the discovery phase, is what organs it's going to go after. So it could go, we don't know. It could go after the heart. It could go wherever it's going to go. And so we've been doing for the last year all these tests and genetic tests, and but again, told no cure, no treatment, don't know what we're going to find. I've had to advocate for myself in ways that I've never done before. I've had the frustration of the medical community and doctors at a very high level. When you're doing storytelling, there's no hierarchy. You can talk to a CEO, you can talk to a doctor, you can talk to your neighbor, and you can tell their story, and everybody's the same. There's no hierarchy. But in the medical world, there is definitely a hierarchy, and you have to find ways to bust through that. So in the very beginning of my professional career, I worked in a quality world of battery manufacturing. And so being in the quality world, you learn how to audit, and you learn how to chase quality issues down. And so that training has worked quite well for me in this medical quest, because I will not stop until I get answers. And so I'm currently still in this, I had a huge test done. And for those listening to your podcast, I mean, I will share this part. Just keep asking the questions. For example, one of the genetic tests, I was told the insurance copay would be $7,500 to have it done. And no one could do anything different. And that was the copay, that was it. So I waited quite a while to get that done. And finally, after seeing several doctors who agreed, yeah, this is the test, this is the one you got to get, I called the insurance carrier myself. And that particular evening, it was the night before Thanksgiving, of last year, I was on the phone for 3 hours with the insurance carrier, different reps, finally reached someone who said, I really don't, I don't think we can do anything about this. I think it's going to be $7,500. We were just about to hang up, no change. That's the cost. And she goes, oh my gosh, hold on. She comes back on the phone and she said, the company who's doing the genetic test is part of the national registry for your insurance, which means you need to call them directly and ask them one question. And that question was, do you participate in the local, my carrier is Blue Cross Blue Shield network? And she said, that could be the game changer for you, because they were not in my area to get the test. So they had to send it out. So therefore, after 3 hours with different reps, this rep remembered that question. I called the genetic company when I hung up with her, And I said, I'd like to ask this question. They said, well, we can't answer that question unless you're a patient. And I said, well, I'm not going to be a patient unless you answer the question. And so they reluctantly allowed me to ask the question, which I did. Put me on hold, came back. Their answer was, well, we could be we participate in the local network. I said, nope, not good enough. I need a yes or no answer. So put me on hold again. They came back on and they said, yes, we do participate in the local Blue Cross and Blue Shield network. I said, thank you so much. I hung up, submitted the claim, $25 copay.
Wow.
Yep. Now, if you are right and find out and dig deep, and you people are paying outrageous prices, but so here I am dealing with this diagnosis, not knowing what my future is going to be, and I have to advocate for myself and dig deep to see if I can get answers. And that's been my journey. So I've been putting things like that in the Sunday Night Reflections so that if I can help somebody else to think a little bit differently, to ask different questions, I will do that. And it's just been amazing. So my current status with this issue is the genetic test revealed not a whole lot, and as far as additional answers. And so I have to look at other alternatives to get answers. So I'm still dealing with the progressive muscle weakness. I live with 4,000 steps a day. That is my max. If I go to 5,000, it's got to be worth it. It's changed the way I look at life. It's changed, the way I look at my future. And so that's currently where I'm at.
Yeah. So how has it changed your look on life?
Well, I've always been a try to live in the moment kind of girl. And, but that has taken on a whole new meaning for me. So imagine living your life in steps, right? So if I live day by day with 4,000 steps, because I know that I can do well in 4,000 steps, every single step has to be worth it. And so every moment, every 1,000 steps, every 100 steps, there are moments within those steps. And those moments, I've got to be present, I've got to be active, and it has to be worth it. And so you look at relationships, you look at what you tolerate, what you don't tolerate, negativity, stress, so forth. What's happening within your 4,000 steps or your 10,000 steps or your whatever you do, 30,000 steps. And I'm just correlating the steps to my mindset. So I'm very careful how I spend my time. I'm supposed to be working 30 hours a week, and I work way more than 30. But I took a job, and I'm a employee development director for a DoubleTree hotel in Reading. And it's a very big job. It's a very rewarding job. But by the end of the week and by the end of the day, I'm pretty beat. But I will choose how I spend the hours of the day, what I do, hopefully making a difference. And, I just want to live my life.
Yeah. I think that's awesome. I can completely understand how something in our lives can shift our perspective. Unfortunately for you, it was, and maybe it's unfortunately or fortunately that for you, it was this medical condition. For me, me prior to this, I was working 80, 90, 100 hours a week, and I was doing great work,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that I was always in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I know I wasn't in the moment. I shouldn't say I don't know. I know I definitely was not in the moment. So, there were factors in my life that kind of, made me ratchet back and do what we're doing now. And I think that's so important for people to really grasp that, whether you're whether you've got a medical diagnosis or, you're 100% healthy, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow,
Nope.
regardless. So, being present and being in the moment, I think is so, so important. And, I think all of us learn that at different paces. And I hope that, through the storytelling that, I've been doing since we've been on this journey, that more people recognize that, what, it's pretty important to be in the moment, to be present. And like you said, choose where you're going to put that energy, in your 4,000 steps. So I think that's very important for people to understand, regardless of what circumstances they're living in. Being in the moment and being present and being with the people you love and people who are feeding your positive energy with their positive energy is so important. So I do love that you've recognized that. And as when you talk about lighting candles, as Sandy and I lit a candle for you when we were in Sedona. We also lit a candle for you when we were in San Antonio. And
Thank you for that.
Yeah. And,
that meant a lot.
Just those little gestures, we knew, what it meant for you. And honestly, I don't know that we would have ended up in Sedona if it wasn't for a conversation, that we had with you prior to that when we were up in Washington State. And we absolutely loved being there. And it was, again, one of those things, we were only in there for 3 days, and it was like, man, we got to get back here and do more.
Oh gosh, I'm so happy you loved it. And that act of generosity of lighting that candle for me, gosh, that was amazing. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome. We were honored to do it.
Thank you.
So when I reached out to you and told you, 100th episode is coming up, and again, when you top that on top of the 270 some that we did with stepping up to the plate, what was your first reaction? Because I know for me, when I when I post them, I don't post episode number XXX. I just post it, and then when I'm looking in my software, I'm like, whoa, we're getting close. This is kind of a it's kind of a big deal. So when I reached out to you, what was your first reaction?
Well, I was honored that you would want to share this milestone with me. So first and foremost, I was very honored, and I thank you for that. And then, but for you, I'm just thrilled that you have had the opportunity to meet so many people, to continue to hear and learn from others and give them the opportunity to tell their story. And the fact that it's 100 plus the other ones that you had done for the company, this is very personal. This is a very personal journey, and talk about being in the moment. In every interview, you have to be in the moment. You have to work that muscle, because that person you're interviewing is the most important person in the room. And you've given the world a gift by doing this. And so how did I feel when I saw it was 100? I was like, holy moly, how did you do that? That's awesome. So I'm just genuinely thrilled. And as I said to Sandy this morning, I love the fact how it's come full circle for you guys, because it's 100 episodes for you and the courage it took for you to do it originally. 2, you went out and on this journey with the RV, and you're just seeing the country and volunteering, and that's awesome. And then Sandy, who was so scared to make such a big change, rightfully so. I got that immediately, but she was really scared. And the bravery and courage it took for her to trust you and to trust each other to do this journey. And where is she today? It's her birthday. She's in Graceland. That just happens to be the location that you guys are parked next to, and when I say, so Sandy, what are you gonna do for your birthday today? Oh, we're gonna visit Graceland, which we're parked next to. Hallelujah. That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. And, even for me, I've had to kind of redefine my approach to podcasting a bit. Cause I mean, obviously, when you were producing them for me, I'd come into your studio and I'd sit down face to face with somebody and, we'd have this conversation. And I think we did maybe one or two podcasts remotely like this. You're in
Mhm.
Pennsylvania, we're in Memphis, Tennessee right now. But that really wasn't my forte. It was really sitting down face to face, and, having that conversation. So when COVID hit, I really had to rethink my approach. And, Justin Shank, who you and I both know, a
Mhm.
friend of ours who does a large podcast, he does a lot of his stuff this way right here.
Mhm.
Um, so it allowed me to expand um, my potential guest list. Um, but
Mhm.
even that, it was really getting out of the comfort zone because um, for me personally, the best way, like I would prefer right now to be sitting in your kitchen with you having this
Mhm.
conversation.
Mhm.
For whatever reason, that's just where I'm comfortable, really, being right there in front of that person, having the conversation. Um, so it was a little bit for me to kind of, move into this technology. Um, but I'm so glad I did. Uh,
Mhm.
because I would have hated to say to you, "Hey, Tony, we're going to be in Reading in May, so I'm going to stop doing podcasts till I get to 100, so you're not
Right.
face to face." Um, so I still do cherish the moments when we have people in the RV and we're sitting down here face to face having a conversation, or on you know a bench outside or something, or whatever the case is. But the remote podcast has certainly, also become a very useful tool for me. So,
Mhm.
there is kind of this ever evolving, um, you know, complexity for me to just keep, you know, figuring it out as I go. Um, but I
And
do
you are.
absolutely, I am, I really
You
am.
are.
And I do love telling the stories, and I love, getting that random text message or email of someone telling me, "Hey, I heard your podcast with
Mhm.
so and so, and it inspired me to do this, or it really touched me in this certain way." So that's really the moments that you know that I do this for. I mean, it's not about how many downloads or likes or shares or whatever. In that case, it's really, if it goes back to the subtitle of the podcast. If one person is inspired or affected by what we're doing, that's enough. And that too is oftentimes um, difficult um, for me, because let's face it, the organization that I led was the Big Vision Foundation, and
Mhm.
I guess I've really kind of um, come to grasp that you can't get big without little, you know. So
Mhm.
the big things are made up of millions of little things, and I think that's why the subtitle of the podcast is so important to me. Is these many little
Mhm.
people that make up the threads of our lives, and they all have an effect on us for sure. So
Absolutely.
with that, um, I want to get to our final question here. I think we've covered a
Okay.
lot, and I appreciate your time. I know you've got a meeting here coming up, and I've got
Mhm.
a birthday wife who wants to get over to Graceland. So um,
Yeah.
as you know, the subtitle, "Many Little People in Many Little Places," comes from the opening lyrics of Michael Frante's song Gloria, which go, "When many little people in many little places do many little things, and the whole world changes." So what's one of the little things that Toni does on a daily basis to make the world a little bit better place?
Mhm. I think for me, I just try work-wise. If I'm at work, I just try to help and engage others to be the best version of themselves they can be, and know there's people out there listening to them. And personally, for me, um, as long as I can keep living the best life that I can show an example to my sons, be the best partner to my husband, and try to just do right by this world, this crazy, crazy life. So just try to do good and stay in integrity, and love it.
It's a great answer. I
My whole
absolutely love.
200 episodes.
We'll get there. We'll get there for sure.
Yeah, I
But
know.
I love that. I love that answer, Toni. I appreciate the time. And again, you know, I look forward to the Sunday night reflections. We're obviously not in contact as much as we were when we were in Berks County, but you are still a mentor and a inspiration to me, even from a distance. So I appreciate that. And there is no one else I would have thought of to have on the 100th episode. So I thank you for pushing me down this road, and perhaps seeing something in me that I didn't necessarily see in myself. And we Sandy and I love you. We love you and Jim, and we hopefully we can get back together when we're up there in May and spend some time and not have to do it over Zoom.
We love you too, Dan. You guys are you're so inspiring to me, and thank you. Thank you for this gift today. Thank you very, very much. I'm so proud of you. So thank you.
Thank you as well. And for folks out there listening, be sure to check out my blogs and other podcasts at danclouser.com. And you can also go onto Amazon and order my book. And my new book will be out here momentarily. Hopefully by the time this podcast comes out, the Journey of My Mother's Son book will be out as well. So Toni, again, thank you for the time, and wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. See you later.
All right.